All right, let's jump right in. When we think of the story of Exodus, our minds usually go straight to the big, epic moments, right? The 10 plagues, the parting of the Red Sea, total blockbuster stuff. But what happens after all that? The Israelites are free, sure, but they're stuck in the middle of a huge, empty wilderness. And it's right here, in the daily grind of survival, that the real story, the deeper story, actually begins.
See, this is where the whole narrative pivots. The focus shifts from these massive displays of God's power to a revelation of His providence. It's not about a single, overwhelming show of force anymore. Now it's all about consistent, day-in, day-out care in the face of these new, relentless challenges.
So, in this explainer, we're going to break down 4 huge lessons from this wilderness survival guide. We'll look at that shift from raw power to quiet providence, dive into this incredible test of daily trust, unpack why miracles are not the same as magic tricks, and finally, see the surprising power of just plain old common sense.
Okay, so the Israelites are officially out of Egypt. The party's over, the initial high is gone, and a very harsh reality is setting in. They are in a desert. There's no food, no water, and definitely no Google Maps. This is a whole new kind of test, and it's going to require a whole new kind of solution.
And, it does not take long for that first crisis to hit, hunger. And right on its heels comes the complaining. It's amazing how fast they forget the miracles and start romanticizing their life as slaves. Oh, remember the meat pots in Egypt? I mean, come on, they were being worked to death. But an empty stomach has a funny way of rewriting history, and soon they're accusing Moses of dragging them out to the desert just to starve them.
Now, God's answer to this isn't just to drop a mountain of food on them and call it a day. No, instead, He sets up this system that's basically a 40-year-long masterclass in the art of trust.
This is the question, isn't it? This is the core curriculum of the entire wilderness experience. God is getting this group of former slaves ready to enter into a real, binding relationship with Him, a covenant. And what's the bedrock of any real relationship? It's trust. So this daily provision of food, this manna, becomes their training ground.
And the rules for this were so specific. You couldn't hoard it, you couldn't stockpile for the week, well, except for the Sabbath. If you tried to save any extra, it would just rot. This forced a complete and total mindset shift. Every single morning, for 40 years, they had to wake up and simply believe the food would be there again. It was this mandatory, daily exercise in letting go of control.
And this just brilliantly lays out the tension, right? Our gut instinct, as humans, is to build a full pantry. We want to create a safety net, get to a place where we don't have to depend on anybody. We crave control. But God, He engineered a situation of total, daily dependence to teach them something way more profound, a real relationship of trust with a provider who shows up every single day.
This whole thing reminds me of that fantastic analogy from the movie The Karate Kid. For Daniel, all these chores, paint the fence, wax on, wax off, they felt totally pointless. He wanted to learn awesome karate moves, not be Mr. Miyagi's free labor. He just couldn't see how these boring, repetitive tasks connected to what he really wanted.
So, why the tedious routine? Why this daily grind of gathering manna? Because that was their paint the fence. It was this repetitive, mundane chore that was secretly building a spiritual muscle, the muscle of trust. This was never just about food. It was basic training for the soul, getting their hearts ready to finally say yes when God offered them the covenant at Mount Sinai.
Okay, so food is sorted. Check. But what about the next crisis? And the one after that? Well, this next part is all about how God provides for their other needs, and it reveals this really dangerous human habit we have of trying to turn one-time miracles into some kind of controllable magic trick.
So right on cue, 2 new crises pop up. First, there's no water. And surprise, surprise, the people complain again. God tells Moses, go strike that rock over there with your staff, and boom, water gushes out. Then they get ambushed by a rival tribe, the Amalekites, and they only start winning the battle as long as Moses can keep his hands raised up to the sky. And this, right here, reveals a huge danger. God almost never does the same miracle twice, and it seems like it's because we humans are absolutely obsessed with finding a formula. The second something works, we want to turn it into a repeatable mechanism, right? We want the trick, the technique, the lever we can pull to get what we want, so we don't have to actually rely on the relationship anymore.
The battle with the Amalekites is just the perfect example. The principle was that their victory depended on God's blessing. The physical act of Moses raising his hands was just a symbol, a reminder of that principle. But the formula is when you start thinking, oh, I get it. As long as his hands are up, we automatically win. You can see that terribly fine line between a reminder of God's help and a magic trick for controlling him.
And this applies to physical objects too. They were told to keep a jar of manna as a memorial, something to help them remember God's faithfulness. But there's always that danger of starting to believe the jar itself has some kind of power. It turns from a reminder into a good luck charm, a rabbit's foot, instead of just an object meant to spark a memory of trust.
So where is all this going? God has provided food, water, and protection from enemies. But a new crisis is brewing, and this one isn't coming from outside. It's coming from within. The entire nation is on the verge of just collapsing under the weight of its own administrative chaos.
So Moses is trying to personally judge every single argument in a nation of over 1 million people. It's insane. He sits there from morning till night and he's completely burning out. The people are getting frustrated. Then his father-in-law, Jethro, shows up, takes one look at this mess, and basically says what you are doing is not good. His advice is simple, it's practical, it's brilliant. You have to delegate.
And this is such a critical lesson. God didn't send an angel down with a new organizational chart. He sent a wise relative with some good old-fashioned common sense. It just goes to show you that God's provision doesn't always look like a flashy miracle. Sometimes, God's help shows up in the form of sound, practical advice from someone you trust.
Jethro then lays out this timeless job description for these new leaders. First, they have to be capable, or to put it more bluntly, don't appoint any doofuses. Second, they have to be God-fearing, meaning they know they're accountable to someone higher up. Third, they must be people of truth, just completely honest. And finally, they have to hate bribes. Their integrity cannot be for sale. I mean, that advice is just as solid today as it was thousands of years ago.
So when you pull back and look at the whole picture, you see this amazing, holistic kind of care. God provided for their physical needs with food and water. He took care of their security with protection from their enemies. And he provided for their social needs with the gift of good organization, delivered right through human wisdom.
So, in the end, the wilderness wasn't just some desolate place they had to get through. It was an intensive, 40-year-long classroom. Every single crisis was a pop quiz, every provision was a new lesson, and it was all designed to transform this traumatized group of slaves into a covenant people, a people actually capable of having a real relationship with their God. And this ancient story leaves all of us with a very modern question to think about. When we face our own wilderness moments, those times of uncertainty, need, and confusion, what's our first instinct? Do we scramble around looking for a formula, a magic trick, a quick fix to get us out of the discomfort? Or do we have the courage to lean in and learn the much, much harder, but far more valuable lesson of daily trust?